the free will of man. I really don't want to talk about this, and the reason will be because you're going to see the Rambam is going to say things which he thinks for most people they're not really capable of understanding it correctly, and it's misconstrued. The Rambam himself writes, for example, that any ideas of Jewish philosophy are be'etzem things which are only supposed to be taught to a chacham amevi midaitoi. It's begetter Maisa Merkava and Maisa Bereshis, which you only teach b'yechidut. You're not even supposed to print a thing like this. How can the Rambam print this? It's so interesting. He wrote a book, We're in the Vuchim, it's full. The Rambam himself writes in one of his letters that as soon as there's an issue of emunah, he prefers to elaborate on it more than when he talks to Sugi and Shas. And I guess the reason is very simple, because the Sugi and Shas, there's other people which can understand, but in emunah, he seemed to be a very unique person, which had a certain perception, which didn't think that many people were capable of understanding. So he himself writes, he says, how do I write my book? And he says, it's very similar to Midrashay Chazal. You should be asking questions. Right Sidus Satira are found in the Agadas of Chazal. The Gemara says, is Bayracha Klach Etzel Agados. So how come they allowed that to be publicized? You're supposed to only teach the Chacham Mevi Midaita. And only be a chidus with 3 or 1, definitely not putting it on the public market. Today we have all these Kabbalah books in English. They translate the Bahir, they translate this. A kid that says, Loi Noher, Loi Boyer, Loi Tzoyer. It's all wrong. How can you do that? How are you allowed to have all these classes which teach about this? Did you check with the person that's going to learn it? Maybe did he finish midday crazy? The Ramam says it's not Roy to Tayel Bapardis. He's talking about even profound philosophy. Achi Malik Crazy Belechem Abasa, which means Havais the Babai Varova and all the dinim and the halachas. So how come he's doing this? Well, he says in answer to, he says he's following Chazal. And what does it do? Chazal write the profound thoughts in the most cryptic way. Allegory. The regular person, mamish doesn't have a clue of what they're saying. And then you say the word, either you take it kipshutoi, which is really, you'll never understand what they mean, or what we typically do when we understand nothing, we say it's a bechina of X, right? It's a bechina of X, and you think it's some kind of a celestial car crash. If bechina X means bechina Y, boom, and they meet on the Bell Parkway, we always going to get a mixture of A and Y in the parentheses. And no zev is yesh beruach chaim. You don't understand A, you don't understand Y, X, you don't understand Y, but it sounds good, and we're allowed of that. So he says Chazal did that on purpose. Chazal wrote it. They never wrote a systematic book on faith or on emunos or anything like that. There's spurts all over the place. You really have to really know them, their language, their thinking, and the disciplines from which they are coming from, in order to somehow really understand what they meant. And then you're going to have to decipher how are you going to make this into a uniform order. Now, the Rambam, that's what he said. Why did they do that? Because they only wanted the person which really sees it. He's the one they wanted to, he should understand it. The other people, let they think it's some kind of bechina of something, or you know what I mean? Something which is really, it sounds good, inspirational. I don't know, call it what you want. They won't know what it is. The funny thing is, after a while, people have a hard time not saying they don't know what it is. So they say, no, this is what it means. That's something else. Okay, they convinced themselves that a square is a circle and a cat is a mouse. That's okay. We have no problem with that. In order to cloud the Sidus are tired the way they are in an orderly way, were not given to those who are not royal lekach. And therefore, Chazal wrote it in such a cryptic, allegorical way that what would you know? Oh, like, can salt itself? Okay, there's also in Irish. Okay. Obviously, salt can't salt itself. So what does it mean? You know what I mean? So the Gra goes to town there. Okay. Okay, he also didn't write this for printing. His Talmidim took it up, but Baruch Hashem is written in such a cryptic way that you can own the Gemara, you still won't know what it means. So you saw 3 more words, but that's about it. You have to spend a lifetime to understand to understand this disciplines. These the language over here. So the Ramam, he did the same thing in Moreh Nevuchim. He never wrote things in a systematic way. You'd have to know the whole book totally with all the background, have all the philosophical background to finally see a uniform train of thought in the whole book. You know, it's Perik this, Perik that, talking about this word, talking about this. You have to figure out, hey, hello, how do they join together? How is it cohesive? You look, those who read Moreh Nevuchim, it's not that easy because it's not always Perik leading into Perik. And then you sometimes that it looks more like a phonetic connection. Like, what is the logical connection of the flow over here? You'll find many things like that. You'll find many people which love hearing different drushes of making hekashim. They love making hekashim with phonetic connection. This must represent this, and this must represent this. Hello? It must? Why must it? Nothing must. What must is that for you to keep your mouth shut and learn, and then maybe you know something. You know, that's the must, the only must I know about. You know what I mean? That's when the Ramban actually writes that he's mashbia. Don't try to understand my Divrei Kabbalah in my Pirush Torah. I'm only writing for the people which understand. Those who have to try, it wasn't meant for them. So it's interesting, one of his Talmidim, Maram Abusaloi, he actually wrote a Pirush on these things, obviously for those people which are the inner circle of the Ramban, which he understood, they wanted to understand, they could understand. So when the Ramban is saying is someone that's not in his inner circle, please don't try. You won't understand anyway. You'll take it to Havai. Forget it. Don't go near it. I have a friend who wrote a Pirush on Ramban al Torah, Rav Yehuda Dvir, fine Talmud Chacham. He wrote a bunch of svarim for young boys on Bavli. For little kids, it's called Beis Lechem Yehuda or something like that. You know, it's like this type of Vertelach, you know, Kiris. It's like, I don't know, did you ever see the book? Did you ever see these books? It's like your David Kviet's book in the Mir in Brooklyn. I don't know if you ever saw his books. What's it called? Sukkos David. Did you ever see these books? Yeah, when you're a kid in 7th grade, you think you know everything when you read that, because look what he does. From one word in the Taishas, he prints probably 50 pages, you know what I mean? And just to understand the Sivas takes 70 pages, and he has fat books, you understand? So he gets it, he wrote this book on Shas for young boys. It's a very nice book. For young boys, it's a good thing, makes them feel good. But he wrote a Pirush, a very good Pirush on Ramban al Torah. Something, I forgot the name of it. I have it as a present somewhere. I don't usually look in it, so I don't remember what the name is. I'm sorry. I use the Moshe of Cook because that's what I'm used to since I'm a kid. And so he's actually a good Pirush. I mean, he doesn't say Vertelach. He's Medayik. He says you have to understand enough in Ramban. The Chap is Ha'oris. Anybody who doesn't know the Ramban well won't even appreciate the Ha'oris. So that's a very good book. It's only for people who spend time studying Ramban. That's actually a very good book. It's not like other books which you know write. And it takes a little Hagor. Figure me out. This is the way it should be done. So he was very close to Rav Shach. So Rav Shach said, I won't write the Haskama until I check the whole thing that you didn't dare try to say a Pirush in the Divrei Kabbalah of the Ramban. Taka didn't. Okay? But by the time Rav Shach got to check it all out, he passed away. So there's no Haskama Rav Shach. What can you do? I'm just trying to say there was a Kpeda. I mean, Rav Shach was very mocked, but not to give an Haskama on a book that anybody even tried to decipher a Pirush Ramban. The Bמשnet I grew up in was slightly different. Rav Hutner, he knew how to protect Ramban, according to Talmidei Ramban, because he was a ben bias in these disciplines. What can you do? So he knew what to do. Actually, it's interesting. The Rabbi Yerucham Zecharon Livracha, the great Mashgiach of the Mir, was also been biased in these things, but that's for those who know. Anyway, good. So I'm trying to say, so the Rambam did the same thing. The Rambam wrote a Moreh Nevuchim in a way which, unless you read Mamash Yedei Gomer, there's no way you can really understand the truth of what he's saying. You know, I was just asked to give from a certain yeshiva, if I would come to give a course in a certain thing. So I said, Ich bin nicht kein Mumche. They said, what do you mean you're not a Mumche? You'll have 2 months to prepare it. So I said, 2 months, you don't become a Mumche. You mean 20 years we'll talk business. I don't say Shurim, which I don't think I did the research. 2 months. That's the way it is today, right? Because what do you have to know? You have to read the book 1 minute before the students, and that's enough. That's not what's happening here. So the crowd is, that's why the Rambam does not want to talk. On one hand, he's dying to explain Emunah. On the other hand, he doesn't want to talk about things in a clear way. If it's what he perceives is called Maisa Merkava, Maisa Bereshis, he doesn't want to print this. So now he's in a problem. This is what the Rambam says over here. Lo ratzisi l'daber b'klal. Lo ratzisi l'daber b'klal, and yet you're right. Because sometimes there's an ace last of the Hashem referred to as Secha. It's unbelievable. And here he tries his best to write it as clear as possible, as opposed to the Moreh, which he does a good job of hiding it and messing it up in a way that you have to know like 7 prakim to understand the sentence. Okay? Here, he writes it explicitly. That's the chayst. It was a getter like a no-brainer, but I have to do this. Why? Let's read it carefully. I'm somehow forced to do this. You see, he says that he has a certain echrech to do this. He doesn't think it's what I should be doing, but I have to do this. It's a big insight to know. The klal is, as Rav Blachman used to tell me, dvash v'chalav. You have milk and honey in your mouth. Tachas l'shoinech. Keep it under your tongue. Don't talk about it. It's not shaykh to everybody. Do yourself a favor. Do Torah a favor. Don't throw it out to every who knows what. But sometimes you have to. I see that the Chassidus, they decided to move to teach certain musagim because somehow in this generation and the last few generations is a big chizuk in Yerushalayim. But one has to be careful. So, someone you try to explain, but with enough for a person to want to learn on his own, and in Mitzvah, he'll grow up with this, he'll understand more of what we mean. Okay, that's what has to be done here, because otherwise, to explain it in a clear, explicit way, it's a Mishnah Chagiga. You're not allowed to do things like this. Okay, I want you to know this is a beautiful Rambam. And what is this topic? What does it mean that God knows the future? This is the taina that they claim on us. Those who claim that man, there's a detrimental reality that man must do, either adhere to the will of God or rebel to the will of God. And all actions of man, what is this? What forces them to think this way? Because the will of man depends on the will of God. What brought them to decide that it must be that way, that the will of man is the will of God? Shehem Oimrim, Ha'ish hazeh yeda Hashem sheyeh tzadik or rasha or lo yeda. Does God know whether this man will be righteous or will be a wicked? Does he or does he not know? Present the question to yourself. And the Rambam continues and says, Im toma yeda, if you posit that he does know what you will be like. He knows what you're going to develop into. If that's the case, it seems to be imminent. That's really going to happen. If God definitely knows, that means it's going to happen. That he knew it. Now, ask yourself the question, why is it imminent? Why is it mukhrach? Because I know, that means it has to happen. The key word is Shiado Hashem milifnei chen. He knew it beforehand. Now let's understand the language. He knows there's a simple way of saying and understanding that God's knowledge is not bound by time. We discussed this already in the past, right? You can have time, if time is like a linear thing going forward with the X going, let's say, wherever direction I'm pointing my arm, and whatever happens at a certain point, and the X is before. So what are you saying? It definitely will be. He takes for granted if it definitely will be, that means it's going to happen. It's very clear that if you have knowledge in hindsight, it doesn't mean it had to happen. I knew afterwards that it happened. That's easy. So what happens if you have a knowledge not defined by the line of time, but above and beyond time? See yourself as God sitting on a perch of an eagle's nest above time, looking at the before and the after at the same time. There is no time for God. We asked this question once. We dealt with this with a Shulchan Aruch Harav and Madura Basra. When is Shabbos for HaKadosh Baruch Hu? When is Shabbos in the Holy Lord up in heaven? When? It can't. If it's Shabbos, every time it's Shabbos in the whole world, he's got 2 days worth of Shabbos. Because when Shabbos starts in Eretz Yisrael, it's 10 hours later already, in Australia. And they finish 10 hours before we do. And when we're 7 hours into Shabbos, 10 hours into Shabbos in San Francisco, they're actually studying, making Shabbos. And we finish 10 hours before San Francisco. So is God busy from going the whole date line? That means to say it's Shabbos for God from the first point of Shabbos. Well, what's the first point of time? Wherever the date line is. Let's just at this moment decide out of the blue, okay? That the date line would be just theoretically, okay? I know that I can describe the Sherm and the Shittas of the Poskim on this, but according to the Razah and the Kuzri, Razah in Rosh Hashanah, the Kuzri and the Soda Iber, which was a Talmud of the Rosh, the date line is basically on the shores of Asia. China, Thailand, etc. That's where the date line is. That's the only place where we know it's Mavurish and Rishonim. Now, other Poskim will say, yeah, but they didn't know. Whatever it be, we're not discussing this. If I want to talk within Shittas Rishonim, that's actually what the Chazon Ish adopted. So we know the date line is China. Which means to say, going away from China to Japan, you're already a day later. Do you understand that? In other words, Saturday in China is for the, as far as those Rishonim to speak with the topic, is Sunday in Japan. This was the famous issue of when is Yom Kippur, when the boys of the Mir, when the young men of the Mir were stuck there during the Holocaust. They were in Shanghai. Okay, and now the question was, when is Yom Kippur for them? When is Yom Kippur? That was a big balagan. We're not going into it here. Just want you to know. So the Chazon Ish was talking machriya that, so to speak, that the Jewish date line is basically, according to the Razah, it's got some mavur in Razah. It's at the end of the shelf of the world, wherever that world is. For us, the top of the world, so to speak, ends with the Chinese shore. That's where it ends. So this is Lamaisa it. Okay. Well, if that's now to say that these people, well, I'm not going into the argument. There's a beautiful book, actually written very well by Rav Blachman Kasher, called Kava Taricha Yisraeli, on this. Okay, it's a nice book. Ben Azmanim, good read. It doesn't take more than 2 days. You read it. It's 3 days. Maybe you should read it just to get us the clue of what this is. So what's the story over there? So when is Shabbos? I'm trying to understand. Shabbos starts when? And ends when in Shemayim? So it's a serious question. When is Shabbos? When is God actually the Bechina of giving the Torah Shavuos? I don't know what. When is Shabbos? Obviously Shabbos B'Shamayim, the name of a record by Shlomo Carlebach. When is Shabbos B'Shamayim? Does he keep daylight savings time? I figure. So one guy said, where else could it be? The center of the world has to be Jerusalem. How could it not? Well, what's the date line? It must be 180 degrees after Jerusalem, and it actually fits almost exactly with so to speak, with the international date line. Well, this is a svara for, you know what, for my grandmother, you know what I mean? First of all, you decide to send to Jerusalem. Why? How could it not? You understand the type of svara? Of course it's Jerusalem. How could it not? Okay. Then obviously there must be a date line. So where is it? We'll cut the globe down the middle like a piece of cake, and it comes out exactly in the middle, you know, near Mamish, quite very near to the international date line. This is an approach by a certain very important scholar. The Chaznish didn't respect this at all. It was bad. Okay. And there are other shittas which are really very interesting. The mice at the end of the day, thank God I wasn't around, but I would have listened to the Chaznish. Okay. It seems to be therefore. But when is it for God? He doesn't have a dateline. And the Teretz says that God experiences this outside of the realm of time. Now, what does it mean experiences outside the realm of time? Shabbos is a function of time. So how can there be a Kedusha Shabbos not in time? That can't be. So Kedusha Shabbos is a relation with time. Well, if time is nothing more than a linear reality, it goes from point A to point B, well, where's the beginning of the point for God and where's the end of the point for God? What makes a day for God? Is it sunrise in San Francisco and sunset? Is it sunrise in Japan and sunset in China? That would give you 48 hours. Is that what it means? So when it says, every day is like 2 days, this is a new one to me. So where is time? When is it for a Kadosh Baruch Hu? You can't just say he's outside of time. That's very nice for him, but how does that make Shabbos? Shabbos is a function of time. The conclusion you must come to is that God's relationship with time is not time in the linear, but time as a concept which is perceived as a mathematical point, something very hard for you to conceive. You look at time as nothing more than a measurement between two points. Well, if that's the case, by definition, it's linear. If that's the truth, then we'd have a hard time understanding God and Shabbos. But if you accept that time is a creation, it's a creation. It's not just a way of gauging 2 points. If you only had 1 point, you wouldn't need time. No, God created time. God created this, and God created time. And it's a bria. And the Gur State Baruch Shama V'Haya Olam is a brach on Brias Azman. You really want to know. I heard this from Rav Blachman. He showed it to me in Likutim and it was Varsha, whatever. So Lamaisa, what does it mean? So time, as everything else, any reality, starts with a point which afterwards is expanded in linear reality. For example, when I talk about anything, when I talk about math, if you know anything about your numbers, you know that the core reality of a line is a mathematical point. That mathematical point now, which only exists really not in tangible reality, but in mathematical theory. A mathematical point afterwards, when it becomes realized in reality, has directions. It becomes linear. Any line, any dot that you see is actually nothing more than a minute line. It has a beginning, it has an end, it has a top, it has a bottom, and it has all directions. It's a cube. Everything which exists is a cube. There's no such thing as matter which doesn't have a height, width, depth. There's no such thing. It may be minute, okay, but it's there because if it's tangible, that means it has all the surface of Matthias. So when we talk about mathematical, we talk about the idea that all of reality that we perceive, if we live within the world of mathematics, comes from an abstract reality which is true in the world of thinking, which is not expressed in a tangible reality. We once discussed this when we did Masech the Sukkah, and we discussed the concept of Ketutis Mechtet Shu'urei. This is a Magid Mishnah in Ilchos Eruvin, where the Magid Mishnah really writes it. The Magid Mishnah says, why is it what is the getter of ketutet mechtet shiurei, something which is about to be burnt has no stature. He says what it means to say that it has. We look at it as if it's nothing more than an accumulation of theoretical points, which is the source of everything. The connection between the points has no meaning in halacha. It's about to be destroyed. Therefore, anything which has a din of height and width, it won't work. But what happens if there's no din of width at all? For example, a lechi in Shabbos doesn't have a din of width. Ovyoi kolshu, there's no din of width. You know what that means? What Maggid Mishnah says? That means in reality, we don't need matter. We only need accumulation of points. The fact of the matter is the only way to make that existent in this world is by having matter. But if that matter is oimid l'sreifa, which means it doesn't have, it may be practically matter, but in halacha doesn't see it as matter, so it still is good because it's an accumulation of points. What did mechtet shiur means to say that the point, we look at this in the world of mathematics, it's unbelievable, my Mishnah. In the world of mathematics, we see something which is oimid l'sreifa, the matter is not choshev, and therefore memela, we don't see them as a connection of their mathematical points into a something which has qaima or tzura. No. And therefore, there's only one thing in Allah that we know, which is a din of goiva with no din of reichav. And that's a lechi in Shabbos. And because of that, a lechi shel asheira is kosher. The Ravid asks, why is it kosher? There's no din of reichav, but there's a din of goiva. Zok the Maggid Mishnah, yes, but goiva doesn't mean matter. Goiva means an accumulation of mathematical points. Practically, that can only be realized in matter. But once the matter has no chashivus, what you see in front of you as far as Allah is concerned is nothing more than accumulation of mathematical points, which is reality. That's why there's no chison ketuta mechtet shiur. I want you to chop this. It's a beautiful Maggid Mishnah, which has to be, I'll send you the link later because I can read it to you, but I don't think people will. Well, maybe I will. All right, 1 minute. Just 1 minute. Here. No, it's before. If I find it fast, we're good. And if not, some other time.
Where is it?
Moment. I had it on my face immediately. I would have shown it to you anyway. No, it's in the Shabbos. Try Yud Zayin. Yeah, Yud Zayin Shabbos. Yud Zayin Shabbos. Let me find 1 minute. This is it. This is the payrik. Let me just find the halacha. Right. Yud Zayin Shabbos halacha Yud Beis. I'll just read the Rambam to you. B'chol oisim lechi afilu davar she'en beruach chaim afilu yisuri hanoah avodah zarah or asherah she'asa oisel lechi kosher. Why? She'alechi avyoy kol shehu. Goiva lechi in pachs me'asar tvachim rochbay v'avyoy kol shehu. What does kol shehu mean? It doesn't need reichav. It doesn't need oivi. What does that mean to say? Is there such a matter in the world which has any goiva that doesn't have reichav and oivi? There's no such matter. You can't have goiva practically without a reichav and an oivi. There's no line which doesn't have a reichav and an oivi. I mean, very small, but there's no such metzias. But the halacha doesn't demand that. So when halacha tells you we need a lechi of a goiva, and we don't, halacha doesn't care if you have a oivi or a reicha. What they're saying is halacha really doesn't care if this is called matter or just a mathematical reality. It just has to be something practical. So practically, you can only get this through a regular reality that has a goiva and a reicha. But now, as far as the halacha is concerned, we wouldn't need it. If you could somehow realize mathematics on your wall, that would be enough. Well, that's the din of ketuta mechtet shiur. You have something which is there, yet halachically the oivi and the reichav have no meaning. So what's left is only the goiva without an oivin or reich. As far as halacha is concerned, this is nothing more than a realization of a mathematical reality, but it has no the texture has no halachic meaning, and we don't need the texture. It becomes in a lulav, I need the lulav, I need the material. In a lechi, I don't need the material. The material is only a means of having goiva, which equals a mathematical reality. The matter in a lechi is a means towards an end. The matter in a lulav is a means and an end of its own. I'll just read the language of the Maggid Mishnah for you to appreciate this. He writes, Yesh nekudot, there are dots, vikavim and lines, and shtachim and space. But actually it's nothing more than imaginative. There's no realized reality of nekuda. You know, the thing is a point in reality. Every point is a kav. Kav b'shetach, b'shetach leimatzel b'goylam, b'goylam b'shiesh gimel rechakim v'shishit stadim. Go on and read it on your own. If you ever learn geometry, ich mein b'shorshen shel dvorim, then you will enjoy this Maggid Mishnah very much. So please read it. It's in Perik Yud Zayin Shabbos Halacha Yud Beis, the bottom part. Okay, take it from there. So this is what we're saying. So we talk about In others, I'm using this as a dogma. It's a very important dogma. You know, the source of all reality is a mathematical point which cannot be realized except for within reality. That's what it boils down to be. Everything comes from a nakuda. And that nakuda is actually the source of all reality, and yet it can only be expressed within the reality. The point can only be expressed in a linear for reality. But we have a dogma or a mashal, which enechanami, that halacha doesn't relate to the linear part, and we see this as the embodiment of nothing more than accumulation of points. This is a much profounder way of understanding than saying it's like burnt and there's accumulation of ashes. That I know what the people say, because they didn't go to high school and they didn't learn geometry, and obviously, or they did, but they didn't know some of what they were doing, and they definitely didn't learn a Maggid Mishnah. That's what's most important. Okay, if we learned the Maggid Mishnah, all those yeshiva shetorah would have evaporated. Okay. This is an important nakuda. Now, the mashal for this is as follows. Time is linear. Right. Our understanding of time is linear. But the source of time is a point. Very similar to the mathematical point that we mentioned, which has no expression outside of the linear. Well, also when it comes to time, time is a creation which is a point. It has no dimension it's not a measurement, it's a yitzira. That expression of that Yitzira is in a linear reality where it's a movement from phenomenon A to phenomenon B. It's like a line. For God's relationship with time, is time seen as what? As a point, not as a line. That's when you say Kriya Shema and you mention the name Yud Kei Vav Kei. You all know that in Kriya Shema you are all mechaven. Haya, Hayve, V'yeh, Ke'echad. I hope you know that, right? Now, what the oomph does that mean? It's a way of saying he experiences time, or he has his experience, his relationship of time is a relationship with time in a dot form, in which past, present, and future are one. He does not relate to time in its linear fashion. That's for us people down here, which live within the realm of physics and live within the world of science. We need the tangible reality. Just so we don't experience mathematical points, we don't experience the point of time. We experience time nothing more than a way of gauging differences between one space and another space. Take away time, take away space and movement. There is no such thing as time as far as we're concerned. Time can only exist if things move. That's what we're talking about. And that's how we gauge time. Kadosh Baruch Hu has nothing to do with it. He's not dealing with time in the linear form. He's Yud Kei Vav Kei Haya Hoive V'yeh Ke'echad. There's God, which is the source of it all. And even God, which interacts with time, Kedushas Azmanim. But he deals with the Kedushas Azman of Shabbos in its point form, not in its linear form. This has not been an easy thing to teach. If you really should go back and read this Maggid Mishnah, it will really help you understand. This is the mashal and the nimshal. So let's understand carefully what we've just learned. So yeah, so God's experience with time is not a linear time. What is it? It's in point form. For him, today, yesterday, tomorrow are all one. Now, I don't know what that means because I only experience linear time. I also honestly don't experience mathematical point, but if I know my geometry, I know the harm and voice depend on that idea. No one dreams that everything starts with matter and with a line. There's a beginning. So anybody used to decent math, okay, and understands there's a concept called point. This Maggid Mishnah is olive base for anybody that does a serious geometry. Okay, I mean in the lumdus, not just because you memorize the different things to pass the regions that the guys in Bedford Stuyvesant do too. I mean, you know what I mean. That doesn't mean that whatever, you know. The people in D.C. could do that too, and not just the ones in Silver Spring. You understand? The guys hanging around over there in the streets before the mall, you know, they don't exactly remember the geometry, but they all passed. Okay. You know, the problem with American education, it's been dumbed down so much in order to make sure that everybody, including some they need a pasuk to say these b'chal adam, he also gets a high school diploma. That's why you poor guys in America have spent 3 to 4 years supplementing your non-education in high school by doing your undergrad degree. If you'd be in England or in France or in South Africa, man, when these guys graduate, okay, they go directly into a grad program. They don't believe that all men are created equal as they do in America. The grand equalizer decided you're all dumb at the lowest level. It's pretty bad. That's well, whatever it be. This is Nebuch the Metzias. Okay, now you know why you have to pay 3 to 4 more years of tuition to supplement the non-education in high school. Okay, that's the way it is. Now you know why OIU is making a killing. Okay, but that's it. It's all of America. This is the Matthias. So that's the Chor, the Pshat, the Pasha. So when the question is asked, you can understand that not everybody can even chop this answer well. But this is something which really anybody, listening carefully, reading the source that I just showed you, translating it in the old-fashioned Euclidean geometry, okay, talk the old language of geometry, and it's a bit good. If I talk to my friends, yeah, what else is new? By the way, do you have a cigarette? I mean, there's nothing to talk about here, okay? Das ist the sure, don't you chap? No, if you're stuck with the ashes being stuck on a wall, and that's what it means, the accumulation of ashes there, fine. No, it's a go. Do your A-levels. You know what I mean? What can I tell you? So according to this understanding of Zman, that's what the Balatanya writes, that the Kadosh Baruch Hu's Shachas, the Shabbos is in a Nakuda. That Nakuda, when it's Mispashit in this world, is linear. And how exactly does it express it in this linear world? So it expresses themselves in San Francisco, it's 10 hours before Jerusalem, and in Sydney, it's 10 hours after Jerusalem. Gesundheit, okay? Once it's in linear form, so obviously since we're a circle, we are in a globe, right? So naturally, it's going to be circular. It's going to be that way. There's no emser, tchila, or soif in a circle. Thus is the chachara adavar pashit. And there's also no reason to be mekai. We see each degree is its own person. The fact that we have these hours according to degrees, it's also artificial. You know that. Anybody knows that in all truth, there are minute differences of time. Canberra, Yavne, and Jerusalem are not the same time zone. And neither is Cyprus, another in Cairo. Excuse me, it's 20 minutes off. Yet somehow, because people don't use their brain and are afraid to have a decent watch and to calculate things, so you make them into time zones, right? You decided in America, that until Chicago, it's one place. You think of it for a minute, this is like atrocious. Like, what are you doing? So this is defined by business needs. What else is it defined by? By the local farmer that decided that he's dealing with Cleveland, that he's in New York, so you have to be in the time zone. Okay, Chicago is Epis Achra Midbird, you know what I mean? So they became another time zone. That's the way it works. These are not cheshbonis in science. We should look them up in anthropology. That's the honest truth. So now we understand this. We understand this mitzvah. So that's the pshat Shabbos by Kodesh Baruch Hu. Once you understand that this question doesn't begin, or does it? In other words, this would be an easy answer. Why doesn't he answer that? Why doesn't he answer that? I mean, he's quite intelligent, and that would be an understatement. He's the epitome of intelligence. I just gave you a simple answer, for goodness sakes. Says the Chazai Pashet, why not answer a simple answer? And there are people that write this answer in their ways, not in the nusach I gave you, the nusach of the Balatanya on Shabbos, but the same idea is found. However they say it, they say he sees the future in the present, but they don't really explain what these words mean. So they're a bunch of cliches. What I've done is undone the cliches and show you what it means, a relationship to time, which there is no difference between past, present, and future. Not that he's outside of time. His relationship with time is in its primordial state, in its core form, prior to it being linear. If you should ever, you probably shouldn't, but if you should ever visit or see the ceiling of the Sistine Chapel, you can Wikipedia this. You can probably do that, okay? Or if you own Britannica, it's a big page, okay? So there you have a picture, so to speak, of Adam dressed in his birthday clothes, sitting and stretching his hand out to his creator. And then there's, so to speak, a hand, metaphorically, of the creator, which is making Adam. It's like touching him, and by touching him, he made him. Now, this is Raphael, which did this. So you have to understand, if you look at the painting unbelievably, you'll see there's a minute empty space between the tip of the fingers of, so to speak, God and the fingers of Adam. Now, those who understand art and lumdus, that was the mathematical point. That is the non-tangibility, which is the source of the tangible. Look at your art, you'll see it. Okay, I noticed it. Okay, and as a young boy, well, I read, but this is the same idea. The shirish of all mitzias is l'maaseh a reality which we only can conceive in thought. It is not tangible through our senses. It exists, just as mathematical point exists. Okay, for those who understand math. Okay, it exists, but not perceived. It's like you talk of God, Ivyachal. He does exist because of certain reasons that you feel he exists, or you know he exists, hopefully, but you can't sense him with your senses. He can't be quantified or qualified, not within the realm of that language. Well, the truth is in everything. Okay, so that b'chayr would be a simple answer. Why doesn't Rama answer that? Because the teretz says you have to understand the oimik of the question. The question is not because, well, since he knows it has to happen. Why is that true? He knows, but it doesn't have to happen. He just happened to be sitting with time in a way that he happens to know now what you're going to do. Because for him, past, present, and future are the same. His question is as follows. His question is, if you know something that's going to happen, that means its reason exists now. How do you know something is going to happen? Because the reason of that happening exists now. And now I know it. It's not since I know it, it must be true. No. If I know it, it must be that the reason of the future is in the present. How else would you know it? If knowledge means internalizing certain phenomena and making a mental image, which phenomena have you internalized to make that image? You internalize the phenomena called the reason of the future. It's a davar pashut. What do I say when I know something? I have a mental image of something in my mind, and therefore I say, with this knowledge, I can deduce that this is going to happen. If my deduction is accurate, it has to happen. That means I really have the detrimental cause of the future. I perceive it, and I'm a major scientist or whatever I'm going to call myself, and I can deduce this cause equals this is going to happen. That's what knowing means. What does it mean when you know something? You internalize a certain phenomena and made a mental image of it. You internalize a multitude of phenomena and made a multitude of mental images, and finally you have a half-decent search engine and you have ideas. But first and foremost, you have to internalize a phenomena, and that phenomena, what I know, if I say that from this phenomena, I can say I know the future. That means the phenomena of the future exists, the reason the future exists in the present. And if I say I know it, it means to say that if I say I really know it, that means it's detrimental. If I know that this reason exists now, it has to happen. It's not because I know it, it has to happen. There's a mistake in the question. It's not the idea of a Kadosh Baruch Hu forces. It's the fact that he's a Yodea. It's not because God knows his knowledge forces it to happen. No. But if he knows, means say he internalizes a certain phenomenon, and he says, from this phenomenon, I know what's going to happen, equals now there's a certain phenomenon, which is the ultimate cause of what will happen in the future. And he, being this great psychologist, can really tell you that's what's going to happen. That's the basic question. The question is not how if he knows it must happen. No, the question is how, if he knows, that means there's something now which tells us it's going to happen. You and me would never figure it out. You and me wouldn't be aware of that thing. You and me are not the great psychologists to figure out how A leads to B. You know, you have a lot of arguments today in psychology, especially for criminals. Oh, it's because he lived this type of a life, it's inevitable that he should make this kind of decision. He's obviously going to kill somebody. Okay, so far, reality is that the systems of jurisprudence do not accept this argument, and people are still held accountable. God also doesn't accept that argument, because everybody does have the capability of having a hard day to make a good decision, but you can make the decision. There's nothing stopping you from being able to make a decision or change your character. As we once pointed out, the Rama read somewhere in the Nevuchim, he doesn't think there's much basis for an argument of Tinuk Shenishba today. He believes that Tinuk Shenishba is only in a person which simply has no access to the cultural information which can teach him the truth. You have an inherent responsibility to be a studious person, to search for values, not to live shallowly. And since the information is accessible, make it your business to. The fact that it's hard for you because you grew up in a family which doesn't care, become inquisitive. That's your bchira. He really does not accept Tinuk Shenishba too well. He believes that even the Oivdei Avodah Zarah today, which they now have the capability, now with all the literature available, they are not Tinuk Shenishba because they grew up in Catholicism. Start researching. The basic quest for knowledge and truth is a responsibility of every Homo sapien. Unbelievable. And there's no teretz for this. You must never be fall down to shallow thinking and shallow. You must research. Big your sight. It's a Ramamar Nevuchim. Well, if that's the case, I'm saying this back here now. So when we talk about Kadosh Baruch Hu knows, that means that there's something already here today. Just he knows how to figure it out. Now that's a broad question. So he could have answered, no, it doesn't exist today. It exists in when you do it, but he also experiences the future in the present, as we answered. You're right. That could have been an answer, but you're failing the mark. What are you doing? You're accepting the premise of the question and saying, but I have a solution. Your premise is that that now, if you know that everything in the future must exist in the past, so the chayre is detrimental. So what are you telling me? No, it doesn't exist in the past, in the past. It only exists when you make it, but God in the present knows your future because he experiences time in a dot point form. Rambam doesn't think that's an honest answer. Because the honest answer is God knowing does not mean he internalizes an external phenomena. He doesn't think it's true. The premise of the question takes for granted when I say I know something, you say you know, and God knows something, it's the same thing. My knowledge means there's a certain reality there, which I internalize with my mind, analyzed it, and I will tell you what's going to happen because of it. If that's true, and God also knows, it means he internalizes something external. That means there is something external, which is the ultimate reason of the future behavior. That's against Bechira. I repeat, the question is not that God knows it, it's the information that he knows. The biggest, I want you to understand, that's the shorish of the question. It's not the idea which is machriach. The idea is not machriach. It's the knowledge which he knows is machriach, the knowledge of a phenomenon. That's the question in Oimik. It's not his knowing, it's the phenomenon that he knows. It's not because he's a Yodea, it's the idea which became his. A idea of a certain reality. If it exists, then there's no Bechira. If we will concede that there are things in man which basically influence his decision to the extent that it's detrimental to be free from that, totally detrimental, means to say there's no way you can do otherwise. If that's the case, we can walk away from Bechira. So the real question is, if we say that God knows, it only means he's a super psychologist. If that's the case, it's detrimental, even if we're not God, because we understand that there's something which is telling him what to do. I repeat, yes, we all know the things that happen in your past will inform you how to make decisions. The key question is, will inform you to the extent you can't say 1 minute, stop. Are you capable of saying no? And the answer is, according to Judaism at least, yes, every human being is capable of saying no. It may be almost a Herculean effort to do it, and it'd be super hard to do it, but that's not the question. Bechira is not a question of how easy it is. The question, can you or can you not? And Judaism believes that there's no thing you can't say no to. You just have to decide you want to. That's another ballpark. So therefore, the Rambam's answer is, I'm going to say this Baal Peh. Rambam's answer, then we can see it inside. Rambam says, when he say God knows, it doesn't mean he knows it, he internalized an external phenomenon. Because the biggest raya is God had wisdom and created the world. Now, the world is unbelievably wisdom. It's unbelievable. The science is, the beauty of creation is so complex with so much wisdom. Where'd that wisdom come from? Anybody else's wisdom came from experiencing through his senses and his mind external phenomena, multi-leveled realities, and therefore translated that into mental images and has ideas. If you would be a one-dimensional person, not even multi-dimensional yourself, and you would not have anything around you, you wouldn't have knowledge. You wouldn't know anything. Thank God you're multi-dimensional. You have different figures, faces, shapes in yourself even, so you can know your body. But if you wouldn't have any of that, what does knowing mean? Now, God doesn't have any of that. He has no face. He's not multi-dimensional. He's pure oneness. And he had all this wisdom before he expressed it in Bereshit Bar Elokim Yehi Or Yirakia. I mean, goodness sakes, he's the powerhouse behind the creator of this evolutionary process, which took who knows how long, and he transformed Earth into Derma. God. You know, that's like cool. Did you ever take a follicle of hair and see what it looks like under a microscope? Did you ever look into a drop of water? The art of a drop of water is fantastic. Did you ever study crystals? It's like psychedelic. Okay, all this is the art and wisdom of God. Where did it come from? From naught. So obviously when we say that God knows, it doesn't mean he doesn't know that he's internalizing external phenomena. What does it mean God knows? And the answer is that the wisdom of God is nothing more than an expression of the essential identity of God himself. It is not Chachma which he internalized from outside and becomes wise because of it. It's an expression of the infinite self, something which we can't really understand. We can deduce. We can't understand this, for we have no such reality in created experience. Nobody is the source of anything. At the best, you're capable of vacuum cleaning the world around you and sponging in the information, then translating it into mental images. And with a decent search engine, wow, you're a walking think tank. That's beautiful. That means you're a great, sand eater. you snort out. Like the Gemara says that the Brisa says in the Derech Zuta that the Talmud Chacham is a soifeg. He's a sponge. He sponges the world around him. That's what a Talmud Chacham is supposed to be. He's very curious, and he sponges the experiences. There's different miles in Talmud Chacham. One of them, he's a soifeg and a zachron. He also is a person of memory. Same thing. He constantly experiences and puts them together and makes mental images. He's got a broad head. I mean, that's at least the word Talmud Chacham according to the Brises. Okay? But that's what it's another pashut. That's not God. The idea of a Kadosh Baruch Hu is nothing more than an expression of the infinite self. I have no clue of what this means. I mean, I know what it means. I have no clue of the essence of this. I can logically deduce that this is the truth. This would be called philosophically true. I will know its Hagdara. There's no way I can describe its mahus. I would have to understand the mahus of God in order to understand the mahus of his chachma. And therefore, when God knows something, he knows it like he knows himself. Does God know himself because he's multidimensional? No. His knowledge is an expression of the self. That is the lashon of the Rambam when the Rambam writes in Hilchis Yesodei HaTorah. I'll read this to you. Where the Rambam writes, this is his language. HaKadosh Baruch Hu eino yodea b'deya shu chutz mimenu ki bnei Adam shehem v'da'atam shnayim because yodea b'deya chutz mimenu. So him and his day, the information are two separate things. Elohu yitbarach shmo v'da'ato echad. Ein da'ato shel Adam yichola lasig davar ze al buryo. What's the Rambam saying? You can really understand this intelligently. You can deduce this. You can have a clear Agdora. You won't know its essence. Rambam is explaining something. I didn't want to talk about this, he said, because this is really for people who have a mind and think and are used to thinking in abstract terms. But those who understand the terms we've used until today, or will hopefully one day, I don't think you can possibly really understand them. And I don't mind if you don't. But at least hopefully it'll tickle your imagination to think, learn, and read, and you will one day, and then you'll say thank you. You can't know it in essence. You don't have total clarity, but it's like a Hagdara. You can deduce this is the equation. No one can really perceive the essence of God. That's exactly what it means. And this is what the Navi says, Ki lo machshvotai machshvotechem, v'lo tarchechem trachai, ne'um Hashem. Lo machshvotai machshvotechem means that I don't think the way you think. You think by internalizing external phenomena. My thoughts are expressions of my inherent identity, of myself. Something totally different. The kiva sheken en ba nekoach leida heich yeda kadosh baruch hu kol habrumim ma'aseihem. So the Rambam is not trying to skirt the issue by telling you, listen, he knows like everybody else, but he has this different relationship to time. The Rambam is a man of intellectual honesty. Giving that answer would be a cop-out. It would be solving your problem, but not telling the truth. The Rambam will never do that. Rambam will not give an answer, he will undo the question. The question doesn't start because the question is based on a premise, on a hanocha of Dasa Kadosh Baruch Hu, which is against our emunah. Rama writes in Yesodei HaTorah, just read you Zichus Tshuva Perik. Hey, Yesodei HaTorah writes, if you believe that God has wisdom outside of himself, then you're believing into a God of multi-dimensions. That's not Hashem Echad. You're a kaifer. Rambam writes this in the Hilchos Yesodei HaTorah in Perik Beis. He writes in Halacha Yud, HaKadosh Baruch Hu mekir amito v'yodeh ota kemo shehu. He knows himself. And then he writes, ve'ino yodea b'de'ah shu chutz mimenu kemo she'anu yodim. It's not like he knows something outside, internalizing something outside of himself the way we do. She'en anu v'datenu echad. We and our knowledge are not one. I am internalizing something and bringing that into me. Now that becomes knowledge. You're not the source of knowledge. You're the processor of phenomenon, translating it into ideas. The Rambam continues, Hu ha-yodea, hu ha-yadua, v'hu ha-dea atzma. Hakol echad. The wisdom, everything is all him. He knows as he knows himself, whatever the word himself of God is. As he is the source of all, he understands himself. So if the original question was, if God knows, that means an external phenomena that he's internalizing. That means in reality, there's something which says, now we know, if you're really a great psychologist, you know that he's going to make that decision, he's going to be Mechal Shabbos. That was the question. And the real answer is, no, that's not, it's really not true. There's nothing now which says that's going to happen. Nothing at all. How can God know? The word God knowing has nothing to do with you, me and you knowing. Me and you knowing means we're internalizing something now. God knowing means he knows himself. He knows from within himself, which you have no clue what that means. But we know one thing, what it isn't. It isn't that there's something now that he's internalizing this knowing. God knows means he's expression of the infinite nature of God, nothing to do with internalizing external phenomena. This is the answer to this question. And that's what the Rama writes here in Shemona Prakim. Let's just read a few words. Turn the page if you don't mind. We'll get exactly to that language. And we go to the last page of the Shemona Prakim. We're in the right column, and we'll go down, third line. Shema mineni ma shani omer v'itbonen bo ma'od. Shua emet b'li safek. This is the truth. Those who study philosophy or rather metaphysics will know this. He doesn't know in knowledge the way you know it. Doesn't live, his experience is not the experience that you experience through your senses. As if that would be true, then him and his knowledge are two separate entities, as yours is. You have done nothing more than process external information and deposit it in your brain. Ki adam, ki mada, shnaim ki adam v'idiyato, v'isha adam zulat ha'idiyah, v'idiyah zulat adam. Man exists outside of that knowledge, and that knowledge is not him. It's internalized in him. It's not him. So there are two separate issues. There's me and there's my knowledge. But by God, v'arehem shnaim. If you believe that there's two things, God and his knowledge, and they both preceded creation, you just believe that there must be two gods out there, or a multi-dimensional God, which is a steer to what you said, Shema Yisrael, Hashem Elokeinu, Hashem Echad, pure oneness, not even multi-dimensional. That can't be. I'm skipping. I'm getting to a point, going down like a few lines, I think it's underlined. Hineni be'er shu yaleh to arav v'tarav hu ad she'omrim shu hu ha'de'ah hu ha'yodea v'hu ha'yadua. He is the knowledge, he is the knower, he is the fact that he knows. It's all one. Inyanim ele kashim, al tachshov shetavinam b'shleimut b'shtayim shalosh shirot midvarai. Don't think that after reading 3 lines of what I've said, you'll understand b'shleimut. You'll have a whiff, you'll know something. You'll become a name dropper. I don't know. You'll be able to say something. Not much. So actually, this is more than enough. I think that reading this without the yad would be very, very poor. You really wouldn't have a clue of what he's saying. The Yad is elaborated on specifically in Hilchos Tshuva, where he elaborates this at length, and I read pieces of it. The Rav obviously didn't understand the complexity of this Rambam, and quite typical, I must say the honest truth. He writes, and the Rambam saying, "Kivin shekein ein banu koach leida hech yida kashbor kol b'rim Amar Avraham lo naaga mechaber minak chachamim." You're not acting intelligently. If you can't explain it, don't say it. You should only slum it. You should never say things that people can't understand. He doesn't chap. The Rambam doesn't say you can't understand. You can really understand the Hagdara, like you people understand geometry. The lumdis behind geometry, the Mahusa geometry, you weren't taught yet. Maybe you should start reading. The lumdis behind algebra, the lumdis behind math, even arithmetic, there's tremendous lumdis there. You were never introduced to it. It means to say here, the Agdora, I can know clearly, like most people, when you learn Kachim Tyrus, you're looking for the Agdora. No one's looking for the Mahusa in the Surah. What's the Mahusa of Tumah? That's in Kabbalah, that's not in Nigla. In Nigla, there's no such thing as the Mahus of Tumah. Don't ask. The Shemish Cup doesn't exist in Tyrus. There's no Shariyosh or Dikaswaris there. There's Hagdoris. All the Rambam is saying, you won't know it Al Buryo. Means you will know clearly understand the Hagdara. The more you learn about this, the more you think about it, you will understand clearly. You will have no clue of the Mahus. I agree. So the Rambam, I hate to say, this is a bit of a mistake. He seems to be saying you left a lot of questions you didn't really answer. And I look at this Rav, I suggest you all read it. I really don't understand why he doesn't see an answer. I think the answer is so clear as the day. This is one of the quite a few Ravs which I wasn't zeicher to understand. As typical, I understand the Ramam, I don't understand the Ravid. Adirabba, let someone explain the Ravid to me. I'll be a very happy camper. Okay, boys, that's it. We go see you on Thursday in Shir. I'm sorry I can't teach you tomorrow. I sent you my Mekaymis on the Rambam. Look them up. They're really, it's very beautiful. And then we're moving on. I sent you also, I think already a page for next week's Sugis on Dvias Avonim Kekarkors and Avonim Kemetaltalin. It's a big, nice, beautiful Rashbam here in Kuf Chavches, a Sugi in Babakama Yud Beis. It's an unbelievable idea, okay? Something which has to be dealt with. And the Rishonim, there's like 4 or 5 sheets Rishonim in the Sugi and Baba Kama. What does it mean? What does it mean you're like Karka? I'm curious to understand. What does it mean you're like Metaltlin? Why does Rashi think that you're like Karka? Even Ibn Chayim is like Karka. Mom used to say you're growing potatoes in your ears, okay? So you don't take out the wax, but that's a shtus. Are you like Karka? What does it mean? Is there a concept of ownership of man on his body? There's a Taisvis Babakama Daf Yud that says that my heirs will inherit my body. That's interesting. Did you know you own yourself? These are serious questions which are going to be negea next week. Kuf Chav Chesed Amud Aleph. We'll finish the Rambam Bli Neder on Thursday, and we're moving on. Bye. Have a great evening. See you guys. B'itoy b'zmanoi. Bye.
Thank you, Rabbi.
Bye. Pleasure. Bye.
Thank you, Rabbi.
Bye. Bye. Bye.